Batman 47. Tom King writing, Tony S. Daniel on the art. And this, of course, is the end of The Gift. This is the three-part story in the alternate timeline because Booster has pulled a bit of Amanda Waller and screwed up royally.
So I'm just gonna be upfront. I had some problems with this, and I'm sure once we talk it out, those problems will melt away. But I have some timey-wimey issues here.
Timey-wimey. What's your timey-wimey issues?
So Booster create the let's call it a pocket universe now, right?
Sure.
Where the Waynes didn't die until much later, and they still die, and it creates this, let's say, Punisher version of Bruce Wayne, right? But then Skeets takes them back to Crime Alley, right before they die, and Skeets and Booster come in, right from before, like past Skeets and Booster.
Yeah.
But Batman or Punisher Bruce shoots past Booster, right, and kills him because he disappears. If he did that, wouldn't future Booster cease to exist? Because now none of this happened.
Well, I'm going to counter that by saying, did past Booster definitely die?
Yeah,
shot,
I didn't
for
see
sure.
him disappear, did he? He definitely gets shot and he falls.
Yes.
Okay, but that would have changed everything from him, right? I'm just using time travel rules here, and it's not really a closed loop, so we can't do those time travel rules. So this one is that him being shot would have altered what he does with Bruce.
Yeah, it's a paradox. But
Right.
I assume because he is a time traveler and he has to be able to change things, the fact the fact that he knows about an outcome in the first place and then changes it is a paradox in itself. So his tech must have something that allows these things to occur.
But then, so this is what I'm having trouble with is Skeets though. There's a second Skeets now because it gets blown up, and the Skeets from the past, right? So that Skeets from the past is there because Skeets from the future got destroyed. It's just creating all sorts of these loose thread, and I don't know how this scenario plays out for Booster to be the Booster he is at the end.
I think you're overthinking it. Like I say, I think it's just a paradox. So his tech just allows it to work as a straight line from his perspective.
Yeah, that just doesn't gel with the Booster
I think
time travel stuff.
It's the only way he can change anything and then change it back. Because otherwise he'd never remember what he did. He'd never learn from anything. And
Right, but as we know in the DC Universe, time like this is a fixed point. So there's things that are like set in concrete. If the concrete's still pliable, then you can change things. Something like Batman's parents and this whole side universe and whatnot, where at the end Booster goes nuts. I just don't know how any of this still happens with the time travel rules. So it's like King just threw them all out to tell the story.
It's not happened. They've stopped it.
no, but he said
But not to Booster.
Because to Booster it happened.
Yes, Booster still remembers all of it. It still all happened to Booster.
Right, but it's not. Oh man, Sword King gets me.
I think he's saying that Booster shouldn't have been able to experience it in the first place because he shouldn't have been able to save the Waynes because DC is saying, no, that's a fixed point. You can't change that.
Well, there's that. Plus, when he goes back, because they go back right before, right, Booster and Skeets go to stop it, to give him the gift in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So that cheese plate joke, right? By that Bruce being there this time, it completely alters what past Booster has done to lead to future Booster to get to that point with the Punisher.
Which is kind of the point anyway, because Booster was always going to go back and stop himself from doing it. Because even like original Booster in the past, when he shows up, he's like, "Oh hey, I'm already back from the future to stop me from doing this." Like he actually says that essentially.
I must have missed that part. I must have been so in the timey-wimey I missed.
So he's fully aware of what he's doing. younger Booster being shot is kind of weird, but I don't necessarily think that. I don't know if DC's ever really played with the whole the future one will fade away because the younger one was, killed.
Yeah, but that's just time travel though. Like I look at time travel like a straight line still, right? Like, yeah, you can jump at points in time, but that one character is still going through it linearly.
I think you have to not look at it as a straight line then for this version.
Yeah, there's different versions of time travel that work differently.
That means that there's a Pocket Universe Booster then, and that's him now. Like, because this is not the same Booster that jumped back in the past. If it's not a straight line. This is why I didn't like
it is
Primer.
From his perspective. That's why I'm saying his tech must have something that allows him to stay in existence when he changes things, because otherwise he would just fade away. So the fact that this version does experience all of it and comes back.
Do you know what's so funny? I saw so much negative stuff online about this arc in this issue this week, but none of it had anything to do with this.
and I'm not negative on it. I'm just, look, we all know I'm the Booster Gold fan here, right? I'm pretty familiar with the different time travel-y stuff in the DCU. This is a new one,
I think it may very well be a new time travel for this, but I think it's a version I've seen elsewhere, so I've just accepted. Okay, we're doing that one.
Yeah, from various other like sci-fi movies or.
Yeah, I don't think I feel like there's a set time travel for DC.
This is the only thing I ever get dogmatic with is with comic book continuity. Everything else, I'm just kind of like, yeah, well, that changed. But I guess it's one of my own things. I wish I could just
put it this way: for here, nothing changed except to Booster. To him, everything changed. So he experienced it all. He lived through it all. His time travel tech allowed him to experience it.
I might have to tweet at King and ask him what the mechanics are, just because I need to know.
Well, I think that's the big thing for me is that Booster going through this is kind of the point. Like, the end of this issue is dark as shit, and it is really depressing, and it's like Booster screws up things so badly that when he comes back, because obviously I did enjoy some of the stuff. Obviously the banter between Booster and Skeets is great. That cheese tray argument, you cheated and you didn't finish your abs thing, and all the rest of it. Yep. And when he's like, hey Bruce, because Bruce is the one who's like, he spent a year building Skeets so that he can go back in time. He's like, it won't work without the right voice. So that's why he goes to Booster, who's got the big beard and all the rest of it. And
Gene in the Batcave.
And he's like, hey, tell the robot, tell Skeets to take us back to this date. And he's like, it doesn't work like that. You have to say an event, right? He's like, okay, take me back to before my parents died. And then I love that parallel of going, yes, Skeets, you heard the man. Take us back to before his parents died. Wank. It's like the original time his parents died. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it was very Rocket and Guardians too.
It was. Yeah.
Am I winking with? They can see me winking. Okay.
I do question how Bruce saw him winking, because he was turned away, hand up, and Bruce is like, you just winked. I'm like, he's got his back to you.
Yeah.
Because he put his hand up, it was obvious he was doing something he didn't want to see.
It's like when someone goes, when someone messes up when you go to talk to someone, you put the hand up, you put it on the wrong side. It's like one of those type of deals,
Deduction. So that's an issue. So he goes back in time, and he ends up getting his younger self shot. And after Punisher Bruce Wayne with a big machine gun from this new timeline, hears his parents be shot in the alleyway. He commits suicide. He puts a gun to his head and blows his brains out.
I love how this parallels to the start of this story. Booster watching Hal Jordan do this to himself. Yeah.
It's the same thing. Because we get that one page at the end where he's telling, Batman and Catwoman, regular Batman and Catwoman, what he's done. And he keeps saying how he keeps cleaning his visor, but he can't get the blood off of it.
It's very Macbeth, right? She keeps washing her hands to get the blood off, but there's nothing there.
Out damn spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, damn, this is so broken. I know some people have not been thrilled. They've not liked the characterization of Booster. They feel he's out of whack.
Yeah, that was my other takeaway, and I feel like they've done a lot of work to make him he's a goofball, but when he's running around the time stream, he's actually a serious hero, and he's good at his job. In between Action Comics in this, I feel like he's just back to being that bumbling idiot.
This is the thing. I feel like this is a different version to the one we just got in Action Comics, and I suspect this is a younger Booster Gold. I know
he's time traveling, so that's the weird thing with boosters. We can actually jump around where he is in characterization.
Right, I did say this in the first issue because we just did this whole thing with Action with Superman, where he's like, no, we can't do this. We just can't.
Yeah, I wonder if this is the story of how he learns the consequences of messing with time when he's not supposed to.
Right, and I feel like this is him younger. He was bumbling, of course, and then it's like, okay, now this is where he becomes serious.
If you're going to change a character that drastically, right? Let's take away him being in a past version and whatnot. You better have a pretty damn good ending and a reason why. And I feel like King does stick it because Booster is broken by the end of this.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, King said, "Oh, there's a big Booster story coming. Like he's going to be the center of this big thing."
I do think it's fair to criticize the characterization though, because it is very different to what we just got, and I think the story justifies it to an extent. Especially the ending leaves it in a really interesting place for the next story.
It might be wrong. I feel like you can mess up characterization, and it can be wrong, and it can be bad. Here, I feel like it's wrong, but not bad, because he still has that relationship with Skeets. He still is, bumbling through and making wisecracks and whatnot.
I mean, forgetting the fact that we had a Booster story recently in something else where we are assuming that's an older Booster after he's learned his lessons here. Yeah. Just on its own, this does feel like, no, this is him learning the consequences of messing with time irresponsibly like this.
I think this feels like a version of Booster. Like I said, we've done bumbling Booster before. It's not the most recent version, but we have done it. This feels like a version that I can recognize, even if it's not the current.
Yeah, this feels like Booster before Ted. Even though he references Ted, this is kind of very much who he was before. I can't believe it's not the Justice League and that stuff.
And I think it's funny because obviously we had the same thing happen with Poison Ivy, right? In this run where people were like, that's not where Poison Ivy is right now. And we got a whole retraction arc. So I hope we don't have to go through that.
But again, with that Poison Ivy stuff, it can be wrong but still good. And I still enjoyed where that went, even if the ride there was a little bumpy. Same here. There's a lot of good here. Like, no matter what you do to Bruce, if you take his parents away, that's his driving force, and he's going to do what he can to make it right in whatever way he can.
Is stronger than the Ivy arc because I think the actual drama and what it's doing to Booster's psychology is a lot more. Yeah. It feels a lot closer to something like Mr. Miracle, where I'm getting this depression from it, where that's where King thrives. It's putting the heroes through absolute hell.
You love doing this thing every Wednesday? Here, enjoy this.
The difference for me between the two arcs, obviously I did not like the Ivy arc. I do like this. Is this has a plot. This has a story to back up, whereas the Ivy one to me felt like a vehicle for banter loose. And then an apology.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, no, there's a plot here. There's a character drive for Booster as well as how it seeing how this affects other people.
Yeah. So
that said, I got King writing two of my favorite characters in arcs, so I'm okay with that.
Oh, Batman and Booster? Yeah, quite right, Matt.
Yeah, shut up. But yeah, and I think he writes a good Booster. He is quippy still, even though he's very from Treasure Island, the guy that got left on the island, and he's just crazy from being left by himself. He's very much like that when we see him in this issue.
Oh yeah, that beard looked great. Daniel's art here was great.
Yeah, it is good.
And he's just quipping away and whatnot. And when Skeets comes
it's a coping
back,
mechanism for Booster, and that shows here.
Yeah. I like that show a lot. I think it's probably my favourite of the three of the arc because it's the one that makes the big dramatic point. Booster at the end being so broken, hit like the dramatic point it was supposed to. Where I feel that he is just a mess now, and we have to deal with him. So I think this will be interesting to come back to it, and obviously King's saying that they will come back to it. So we'll see.
It's just a question of whether it'll be King or someone else.
Yeah, given that this lines up with maybe this whole Sanctuary thing that King's doing, I feel like it probably will be King, but we'll see. We'll see what comes from it.
Yeah, this was despite the Booster stuff, this was a 9 because it affected me. I got to the end and I wasn't upset. Like, yeah, my brain was a little broke from the time travel stuff, but it was all worth it for that last page.
Watch Matt like go on 10 minutes about how the time travel doesn't work, and then give it the highest rating at the end of the discussion. I'll go. I will always go last. I'll be nice and rotate us a little bit. I think I'll go a little bit lower, actually, bizarrely. I'm going to go with an 8, I think, with this one. I think it's really solid. I think the dramatic stuff it does really well. I think my only problems with this arc, really, is that the way it sort of jumps through a lot of the different times, I could have maybe have, been fleshed out just a little bit, maybe another issue to make it feel like the pacing wasn't so quick and, like, sort of, like, jumpy. It kept jumping forward in time, and it made sense for what it was doing with each part of the time period. But I felt like there was maybe a little bit more to do with the whole Joker eyes thing that was introduced in the first issue of it, or maybe a little bit more to do with where the Robins ended up or whatever. After we sort of got what they were up to. But no, minor quibbles. But no, I think it was a solid arc. So issues an 8 out of 10 for me. Connor.
No, I also give it an 8. I think. It's very good. It had to jump through a few hoops, like I'm having to explain away that, it's a younger booster to kind of set my mind at ease with it. But I would rather not have to be even questioning that. But, the emotional beats landed. But like I say, I think it needed a bit more time as an arc. It paced a little funny. Things like, the stuff you mentioned, but also like Catwoman feels a little shortchanged, perhaps.
I like the idea of Catwoman in this timeline being completely psychotic, but it maybe didn't get built up enough to. Yeah,
seeing some impact of that, of like, okay, what caused this, rather than just okay, she's a crazy cat killer.
Yeah,
I kind of like that though, because I look at, like, say Connor doesn't enjoy these movies because he hasn't seen them, but Back to the Future, to where when he goes to the future in the second one, you kind of just touch on these things, and you can kind of get the beats from them without having to completely understand them. So I was okay with all that stuff.
I guess that's the point, though, is that I don't feel like you do get the beats of the Catwoman, like why she is this way, beyond just.
I mean, I could say maybe she was Jokerized, but I'm reaching. I don't actually know.
Yeah. There you go. So 9 and 2/8 you got for that one. So you can average it out yourselves.
Yeah. Wouldn't want us doing maths, would we?